There is something about you that other people cannot stop thinking about, not your appearance, not your achievements, not the curated, presentable version of you that exists in photographs or first impressions or the surface of social interactions. Something underneath all of that, something structural, a quality so woven into the fundamental fabric of who you are that you probably don't even notice it anymore, the way a person stops hearing the sound of the ocean after they've lived beside it long enough. But others hear it clearly, sometimes startlingly. Sometimes, in the middle of an ordinary conversation with you, they catch it, this particular quality of how you move through life, and something in them goes quiet in the way that things go quiet when you encounter something genuinely rare. When you're in the presence of something you didn't know you'd been looking for until it was right in front of you, someone is experiencing that right now. Someone whose admiration for you has been building not in the fast, combustible way of infatuation, but in the slow, permanent way of genuine respect arriving in increments, each one adding weight to something that has become, without them fully planning for it, one of the most significant emotional facts of their life. They admire you immensely and specifically, and for reasons that will surprise you with their precision when you understand what they are. Let me start with the thing that probably drives other people slightly crazy about you, because it is also the thing that this person finds completely, quietly extraordinary. You refuse, not loudly, not with confrontation or dramatic boundary setting or the performative displays of self respect that some people confuse for the real thing. You refuse in the particular understated Virgo way, with a simple clarity, a composed certainty, a decision made without apology that communicates more through its steadiness than any explanation could. You refuse to pretend that less is enough when you know more is possible. You refuse to accept a version of something, a relationship, a situation, a professional arrangement, a quality of interaction that falls below the threshold of what you actually believe is right. You refuse, quietly and completely, to lower the bar just because lowering it would make life more comfortable for everyone involved, including yourself. This costs you things. You know that. You've watched opportunities dissolve because you wouldn't compromise the standard. You've felt the loneliness that sometimes lives at the altitude where you operate, where the air is cleaner but also thinner, and fewer people are willing to make the climb, and yet you don't lower it. You return to that refusal again and again, sometimes exhausted by it, sometimes questioning it, but fundamentally unable to abandon it, because to abandon it would be to abandon something so central to your sense of yourself that the version of you remaining after the abandonment wouldn't be recognizable. That is not stubbornness, that is integrity, wearing its most demanding form. And this person has watched you do it repeatedly across contexts, and each time their admiration has deepened in a way that is very close to reverence. There's something I want to name about high standards, because the phrase gets used so often that it's in danger of losing its precise meaning, and precision matters here. Your standards are not a list of requirements. They're not a checklist deployed against people and situations to determine their worthiness of your time. They're not rigid or brittle or defensive, though they've probably been mischaracterized as all of those things by people who found them inconvenient. They are an expression of your understanding of what's possible. That is the distinction. That is the thing this person sees that others miss. Your standards are not born from fear or control or the need to protect yourself from disappointment by setting the bar so high nothing can reach it. They come from a genuine, deeply held belief in the higher version of things, the better conversation, the more honest relationship, the more meaningful work, the interaction that honors the full dignity of everyone involved. You believe in the better version. You've always been able to see it, to perceive the gap between what something is and what it could be, between what's being offered and what's actually possible, between the comfortable, mediocre version of a thing and the alive, demanding, worth everything version. You choose to hold space for the alive version, even when the wait is long, even when the available alternatives are pressuring you to accept less, even when the people around you have decided that the comfortable version is good enough and can't understand why you haven't followed them into that easier territory. You hold the space. And this person who has been watching you hold it, who has seen you refuse to fill the space with something that doesn't belong there, is in awe of it. I want to describe the specific moments that built their admiration because it didn't arrive as a single revelation. It accumulated in particular exchanges, in witnessed decisions, in the quiet evidence of who you are when things get difficult. There was a moment, and you may or may not remember this as significant, because you were simply being yourself when you said no to something that most people would have said yes to, not dramatically, without lengthy explanation, with a simplicity that communicated complete internal settlement on the matter. No ambivalence in the phrasing, no apology wrapped around the refusal, no performance of regret designed to make the other party feel better about not getting what they wanted. Just no, clear, final, offered without cruelty and without softening. They watched that and felt something shift in their understanding of you. Because the ability to say no without apology, to hold a position without immediately filling the subsequent silence with justification, is rarer than most people realize. It requires a relationship with your own judgment that most people never fully develop, a trust in your own perception that doesn't depend on external validation to feel stable. You have that, you've had it for a long time, and it's gotten stronger as you've gotten older and watched your instincts prove themselves right enough times that the doubt, while still occasionally present, no longer has veto power. They saw that, and it changed how they saw everything else about you. Something about the way you communicate has been living in their mind. Not just what you say, the content of your words, though that too, but the texture of how you say things, the precision of it, the way you don't reach for the approximate word when the accurate one exists, the way you notice the detail that changes the meaning of the whole and name it, and don't apologize for the level of specificity that requires. Most people communicate in broad strokes, in the general vicinity of what they mean. In approximations, they hope the listener will fill in accurately. And most of the time, this works because most interactions don't require anything more demanding than comfortable, approximate understanding. But you refuse approximate understanding. You want the actual thing understood. You'll slow down to find the right word. You'll circle back to correct something you said that was nearly but not quite accurate. You'll ask the clarifying question that nobody else asked because everyone else was satisfied with the approximate answer and you needed the precise one. This person has been in conversations with you where that quality appeared and they left those conversations feeling, and this is the specific word I keep arriving at, times more intelligent. Not because you condescended to them or performed erudition, because the quality of your thinking elevated the quality of the exchange. Because being in dialogue with someone who means exactly what they say and says exactly what they mean creates a different kind of conversation entirely. They have been replaying those conversations, adding to them in their mind, continuing them past the point where they actually ended, thinking of things they wish they'd said, questions they should have asked, directions they'd like to take it next time. They are already planning next time. I want to address something that I feel in your energy, a quiet, long running uncertainty that lives just beneath the confidence. Something that asks, in its most private moments, whether the standards are worth it. Whether the holding out, the refusing, the insistence on the better version of things has been the right choice, or simply an elaborate way of keeping yourself from the messy, imperfect, occasionally wonderful reality of fully engaging with what's available rather than what's possible. You've wondered whether your standards are vision or defense, whether you're holding space for the real thing or simply making the space too demanding for anything to enter. I want to offer you what I see, and I want to be careful to offer it honestly rather than simply reassuringly. It has been both at different times. There have been seasons where the standards were genuinely protective, keeping you from things that would have cost you more than they gave. And there have been moments where the standard was held as a kind of invisible shield, a way of staying above the fray, a method of remaining in the comfortable position of the one who hasn't yet committed rather than the one who committed and risked being wrong. But here's what's also true: the standard itself is real. It isn't manufactured. It isn't a defense mechanism that created a belief as its cover story. You genuinely know what good looks like. You genuinely can perceive the difference between what is and what's possible. That capacity is authentic. And the person who is watching you, who has been watching you, hold this standard across time, across pressure, across all the moments where the easier path was clearly available and you chose not to take it. They are not admiring a defense mechanism, they are admiring the real thing. They know the difference. There is something fascinating happening in how this admiration is affecting them, because admiration of this depth and this specificity does not leave a person unchanged. You are raising their standard, not through instruction or expectation or any direct intervention in how they operate, simply through proximity, through the model of what you demonstrate every time you move through the world in alignment with your own deepest values without apology, through the quiet, consistent evidence of someone living at the level of their own best understanding of what's right. They have started to notice with a slight discomfort that is actually the productive kind, the kind that precedes growth, where they've been settling in their work, in their relationships, in the private agreements they've made with themselves about what's good enough. They've been holding their own life up against the implicit standard of yours and finding certain areas where the gap is uncomfortable. This is what great people do to each other, not through criticism, through example. You are doing that for them without knowing it. And the admiration they feel is tangled up with something adjacent to inspiration, the particular galvanizing effect of encountering someone who makes you want to be more fully who you are, who makes the comfortable compromises feel less comfortable, who makes the better version of things seem not just possible, but suddenly, urgently necessary. You are that person for them. Do you understand what that means? To be the person who makes someone else's standards rise? That is not a small thing. That is one of the rarest and most consequential ways one human being can affect another. I want to describe what they want from you because it's not what it might first appear to be. It isn't the novelty of someone they can't quite reach. It isn't the particular attraction of the difficult or the unattainable. Those things produce infatuation, and what this person feels is something more settled and more serious than infatuation. They want to be in your world. In the specific, daily, unglamorous sense, not just the elevated conversations and the moments of mutual recognition and the particular quality of presence you carry in significant exchanges. The ordinary version, too. The you that navigates an ordinary Tuesday. The you that has frustrations and preferences and the particular way you do small things that reflects, even in small things, the quality of attention you bring to everything. They want to know that version, the complete one, because the person they've been admiring from the vantage point of your public self, the composed, standard holding, precision communicating, quietly extraordinary version, they're smart enough to understand that that person didn't emerge from nowhere, that she has a whole interior world, an entire private life of thought and feeling and history, and the particular unrepeatable experience of being exactly her. They want access to that interior world, not to analyze it or assess it or measure it against some standard of their own, simply to be trusted with it. Something I want to say about what's coming, about the way this admiration is going to express itself in the near future, because it's already in motion, and I want you to be prepared to receive it with open hands. Rather than deflecting it with the practiced modesty you sometimes deploy, when the fullness of what someone is offering feels like more than you're sure you're allowed to accept, they are going to tell you what they see in you, not all at once. In the way this person operates, thoughtfully, deliberately, without rushing anything, it will come in pieces. A specific observation here, a moment of named appreciation there, the kind of compliment that isn't generic flattery, but the targeted, precise recognition of something real and specific about who you are. And when that begins, when they start handing you one by one the particular things they've noticed and held and been moved by, I need you to do something that does not come easily to you. Receive it. Don't deflect with humor. Don't immediately redirect the focus back to them. Don't immediately perform the analysis of why they might be wrong or where the thing they're praising has its own complications and limitations. Don't shrink the gift by refusing to open it fully. Receive it, let it land in the actual center of you, and acknowledge, quietly and without apology, that someone seeing you this clearly and admiring what they see is not more than you deserve. It is exactly what you deserve. It has always been exactly what you deserve. Virgo, there is a version of your story that I want to name not as what's happened, but as what's ending. The version where you held the high standard and paid the full price of it alone, where you maintained the altitude and felt the loneliness of it, where you refused to compromise and wondered in the quiet whether the refusing was wisdom or simply the pride of someone who'd convinced themselves that settling was beneath them. That version of the story had its purpose. It built something in you. The quiet certainty, the rooted self knowledge, the ability to hold a position without external validation, those didn't arrive without cost, and the cost was real, and you paid it with a grace that deserves acknowledgement. But that version is closing. What opens next is the version where someone matches the altitude, where the standard that has lived in you, that has guided you and sometimes isolated you in all ways, always defined you, finds its reflection in a person who doesn't need you to explain it or defend it or apologize for it, who doesn't experience your standards as a challenge to meet or a judgment to resent, who simply recognizes them, who has their own version of them, who looks at you and feels not the discomfort of someone being held to an unfamiliar expectation, but the relief of someone who has finally, after a long search in the wrong places, found the person whose understanding of what's possible matches their own. You have never been too much. You have simply been in rooms that were too small. The room is about to get larger, and the person helping to expand it is already standing at the door looking at you with the specific, unhurried, completely genuine admiration of someone who has taken the full measure of you and found not a single thing they would ask you to change. If this reading reflected something back to you that you've perhaps never quite let yourself fully believe, I'd love to know. Drop it in the comments below. Not the explanation, just the feeling. That's enough.